Hello, I'm Lawrence Beldon Smythe, the man from England. Well, not the only man from England, but the only one you're watching on TV right now. Hopefully. Anyway, I came to America to uncover truths wherever they lie. And truths are lying on a daily basis, believe me. Before we continue, I have a slight confession to make. This episode from NASA's Cape Canaveral in Florida is slightly personal. My late father, Gordon Beldon Smythe, firmly believed that the whole moon landing thing was a fake. So to honor his paranoid, conspiracy-filled memory, I came here to uncover the truth. My path of discovery took me inside the heart of NASA for an exclusive look at their rocket ships, known as space shuttles. It took me inside a local rocket club so I could learn more about blasting things into the air for no apparent reason.
Oh my God!
And it took me into astronaut training to see if I had what American astronauts call the right stuff.
Stop! Stop!
And it doesn't look promising. So prepare for liftoff, because my name is Lawrence and this is America.
I'll pack my favorite trousers, my toothbrush and my comb, 'cause America is calling me.
NASA's launching headquarters is on a cape on the coast of Florida. Florida is home to humidity, hurricanes and the hoary. That means old people, not prostitutes. And oranges. It's also home to NASA, the American government agency responsible for the alleged space program. It was from this swamp-filled location in the 1960s NASA launched a multitude of rockets. A few, grouped under the name Apollo, are said to have made it all the way to the moon. Unless you're like my father and believe they only made it to a Western American desert. He was sure you could see cactus in the background of those moon videos. But then he was also sure potatoes could talk. Only raw ones, not French fries. Apparently they were very good at mathematics, long division in particular. Anyway, the rockets of the 60s gave way to this mighty beast in the 80s, the Space Shuttle.
Houston now controlling.
This vehicle was special because it was reusable. It would appear NASA led the world in recycling. To discover what's fact, what's fiction, and what's paranoid schizophrenia, one must go to the heart of all things spacey, the Kennedy Space Center. First stop is something called the Visitors Center. This place has rockets and other pointy objects that were either sent into space or made to look like the ones that were. Along with the objet de space, one can find real-life astronauts lurking. No, not the teenager in the suit, this chap named John Fabian, who flew in 2 space shuttles in the 80s. What goes through your head when that enormous tank of fuel goes off underneath you and you hear this rumbling and...
Well, at that point, you're simply holding on, you know. It's a wild experience. People are always curious, you know, as to whether or not it's frightening on the launch pad, and the answer is yes, you're very frightened on the launch pad.
Do things like odors travel in space?
Most people think that the astronauts are the bravest people in the space program, but it isn't true. It's the guy who comes and opens the door after you land. Because you can imagine everything's inside that vehicle. But the guy who opens gets that first whiff of air from inside, he's a brave guy.
Can I ask how people go to the a bathroom, as you say in America, in space?
Now, we do have a toilet to get rid of solid waste, and you know, some key steps there are to make sure that you put your seatbelt on so you don't float away at the wrong time. And you know, so it's an interesting exercise. You have to train to use it. It has an opening in it slightly larger than the top of a Coke can.
Oh, really?
And so, you know, aim is real important here. So.
Beldon Smythes have always had excellent aim, which led this reporter to have an epiphany. That's English for good idea. No Englishman has ever gone into space from NASA. Oh, there have been 3 so-called Englishmen, but they all have dual citizenship, so they don't really count. The Russians sent up an English woman, and James Bond can't be included. So the field was exposed for someone with the right combination of courage and Englishness. We gave America democracy, so it was time they gave us a ride on their rocket ships. And by us, I mean me. If I wanted to get into the space program and become an astronaut, what would my chances be?
Very low. It's very low for anybody. You know, of the people who apply, 1 in 500 is selected.
The odds of being a global television celebrity are even lower, and I've plucked that chicken, so this astronaut thing can't be that hard. But before I went to NASA, I needed to learn a little bit more about this rocket science business. It may be on the test. So I visit a local weekend rocket club and enter their strangely phallic world next. I'm in sweaty Central Florida, learning about the culture of space travel and attempting to become the first real Englishman to be thrust into space. Before one penetrates the hallowed ground of NASA, which stands for National Association of Space Artists, or something like that, one should do proper research. In this case, that meant a visit to this sod field in the middle of nowhere to learn more about the science of rockets. Once a month, local brainiacs gather to sweat, compare stories, and thrust objects as far into the air as they possibly can.
Now, why do you do this?
I do it for the fun of it.
Yeah.
I've never flown a payload that had any scientific application in it whatsoever.
How did you come by this? Did you buy it from an arms dealer?
Well, I am a student of Space Academy of Space Florida at Kennedy Space Center.
Oh, right.
Yes.
So you're a rocket scientist?
Not yet. Not yet. Wannabe.
Right. What are you holding here?
Okay, this is one of the propellant loads for a rocket that I'm going to fly later on today.
It's propellant load? What does that mean?
It's what you put in the rocket that makes it go.
Oh.
That little tube of chemicals that burns with the heat of at least 20 suns is known in Rocket Club speak as a motor. No, there are no moving parts, just a lump of fuel. I know, I was confused too.
These are rockets?
They're rockets. You can see a motor down here.
Yeah.
And this one has a parachute. His head pops open and a parachute comes out the top. And this one's works similar. There's a motor in the bottom, except the whole top of his head I'm not going to take it off right now because it's ready for flight. But the whole top of his head comes off and a parachute comes out.
Was this launch a failure or the secret test of a special ground-triggered parachute?
This particular engine here is made from fertilizer and sugar.
You made your own fuel?
Yes,
Out of fertilizer and sugar?
yes.
I've heard of a sugar rush, but this is ridiculous.
The motors that we put in this, really at best, and anything you'll see out flying out here, at best is only going to reach, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 feet. I'm sure you know, is to get out to space, you've got to get up to 50 to 60 miles up, which is considerably further.
The more time you spend in this sweaty field, the more obvious it becomes that most of these projectiles have a certain, well, similar appearance. Is it due to aerodynamics or a deeper, more subconscious connection between American rocket scientists and their explosive projectiles? We'll never know.
Some men go through midlife crisis and buy a sports car and stuff, and...
Well, I'll tell you what, there really isn't a whole lot better being in midlife, coming out on a Saturday afternoon and flying the biggest piece of phallic symbol you can find.
Or maybe we will. Regardless, the launch lust is infectious. So it was time this reporter got his hands around a flaming pole of power.
Just like NASA, we totally believe in having redundant systems so that if one fails, we've got a backup.
Unlike NASA, you're standing on a plastic chair to reach it.
That's right.
At last, it was time for the final countdown.
3, 2, 1.
It was over so fast, so here it is again, but this time from the rocket's viewpoint. I think I've proven my ability to grasp the intricacies of rocket flight. All you need is some sugar and fertilizer, a phallic-shaped tube, a button to push, and the ability to count backwards from 10.
2, 1.
Why do they even call it a science? I mean, really, is it that hard? Armed with this insight, it was time to present my credentials to the only organization with the cash, infrastructure, and solid rocket fuel to fulfill the spaceflight dreams I've harbored for several minutes. I enter NASA for a peek under the skirt of the US space program. Next. If one is to fully explore the culture of American space travel, then one must come to Central Florida, home of NASA, America's bastion of blastoff. I'm also attempting to become England's first genuine male citizen to reach space. So, to aid both quests, I've gained exclusive access inside the hallowed marshland of the US Space Artist Organization. First, I wanted to look at the spacecraft I would soon be riding into the unknown. I was taken to this place called the Launch Pad because apparently there was something ready to launch.
Up behind you, you see the Mobile Launcher Platform, or MLP. On top of that, we have the two SRBs and the external tank. Mounted on top of that is the orbiter.
It was clear NASA liked acronyms. Okay, then.
And liftoff.
It seems like it's rather heavy.
Yes, well, that's why we've got all that thrust, to be able to get it to the 17,000 miles an hour it needs to go in about 8 minutes. So sitting here from 0 to 17,000 miles is about 8 minutes. And about a quarter of the way around the world.
It was also clear we were standing in some sort of fire pit, perhaps an early psychological test for would-be astronauts.
Here we'll launch and we produce 6,000 mile an hour, 6,000 degree wind comes roaring out of here.
So we wouldn't want to be standing here then?
No, you wouldn't stand here very long. You'd be out in the fence or beyond.
And maybe not alive?
No, I'd very seriously doubt you'd be alive. The sonic energy would rip you apart here just from the sound.
Sound can melt a human being? Really? And astronauts are strapped to the top of that explosion? I think it's time we move on.
This is the CT, Crawler Transporter. It carries the shuttle from the VAB along this specially made roadway made out of stones. How's that for high-tech? To the launch pad over there. It weighs a staggering 6 million pounds and travels at an enormous 1 mile per hour. That's rather how I felt last night after I had all that Mexican food. I do like refried beans.
The VAB I referred to is this massive place, the Vehicle Assembly Building. The pictures don't do its giganticness justice. It looks like a leftover set from one of those old science fiction movies.
And who designed it?
Well, Dr. Diebus and Dr. von Braun from Germany, they were the German scientists from the space program that they had during World War II.
They had a space program in Germany in World War II?
Yeah, they started rockets. That was the buzz bombs, the V1 and the V2, so that was probably the earliest rockets.
That wasn't space they were aiming at, that was London.
NASA originally built this place for the old moon rockets. Today, it's where my shuttle will be attached to its rocket friends, who will help punch a hole in the atmosphere when I launch.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Endeavour, expanding the International Space Station.
I'm told the shuttle spends a lot of time shooting down asteroids and aliens intent on invasion and domination of our fragile species. It's all top secret, of course, and no one at NASA would confirm it. They deflected my questions with words like stupid. But the internet doesn't lie. Anyway, NASA did confirm the shuttle takes trips to this unusual structure, the International Space Station, currently orbiting above our heads as I speak. It brings supplies on these trips, things like food, and oxygen, and cake. It also brings scientific items, which are assembled in this giant white room known as the SSPF, or Space Station Practice Field. Or was it Preparating Functionabilityness? These acronyms get confusing.
In this building, we process, for final flight, every element of station that's launched on the shuttle.
And how do you process a space station?
They come in from different vendors, different countries, and we test them to make sure that they will function once they're on orbit.
In the spirit of international cooperation, the Americans now take foreigners' gear up to the space station. So this place is crawling with busy visitors who are made to dress rather eccentrically. Not sure why.
To give you an idea of the size of the International Space Station, imagine I'm at one end and you're at the other. There's plenty of room to go and find a little bit of extra space if the French contingent have been eating garlic again.
In between blast-offs, the shuttle lives in this place, the garage. That black square-filled panorama is actually the underside of the shuttle named Atlantis. Why a space vehicle is named after a mythical underwater city is a mystery. The garage is a cacophony of coordinated clutter. Bits and pieces are everywhere, and I wasn't allowed to touch any of it. It was hard not to. I'm a toucher, not a watcher. But I resisted in the interests of science and the threat of instant removal from the state of Florida. My visual inspection of the Atlantis underparts did help NASA pass the Beldon Smythe competency test, making them worthy of launching this reporter into space. When presented with this fact, NASA officials said my final step was something called astronaut training. How much training do you need to strap yourself to a rocket? Apparently a little bit. So, to keep NASA happy and to confirm my place in English history, I will enter the dizzying world of astronaut training next. I came to Central Florida to explore America's fascination with space, and to offer a gesture of goodwill to my late father, who believed the whole space travel thing was a fake. He also believed I'd never be a successful globe-trotting journalist. So clearly the man was delusional. I told you I was more than just a hairdressing assistant, Dad. But you'd rather listen to your potatoes than me! Anyway, during my investigation, I've discovered NASA hasn't launched any proper Englishmen into space. So to rectify this situation, I have graciously volunteered. But before I go, NASA said I had to try astronaut training at a facility on the outskirts of their Florida headquarters.
So now I'm going to be learning how to land the space shuttle, and here we have the Discovery Space Shuttle simulator. So the first thing I need to do is enter the spacecraft. I think I found the door.
This facility's mock shuttle is apparently life-size. One word springs to mind when entering: cramped. I was told I needed to land the fake shuttle to have any hope of being an astronaut. So, with my crew depending on me and mission control holding their breath, it was time to bring this baby home.
Let's get the nose down, nose down, nose down, nose down. Now let's try to put this on the runway because we've not put skis on the Discovery orbiter. Okay. We're going to have to make the runway. Keep directional control.
Oh, sorry.
Keep directional control.
What does this button do? Does that fire a machine gun?
In this case, it's going to call for ambulances.
Okay.
That one just cost the taxpayers about $18 billion.
Oh, you mean we're dead?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I'm more of a leader than a doer. Once I'm on the moon, I'm going to have to adjust to different gravity. Luckily, there's this bizarre training harness.
Now, this is something that astronauts would be doing when they...
Yes, this would simulate walking on the moon. Now, I'm gonna raise you up, keep your feet flat.
Mm-hmm.
You should feel it getting you up on your tiptoes.
It's a very strange sensation,
here in a
Pam.
minute.
Hello. What's going on?
Once you adjust to the strange feeling and the excruciating squeeze on your genitals, walking on the moon is fun.
I'm walking on the moon! Oh, watch out, wall.
Yeah.
Oh! Ah! Ah!
I think I've mastered this one and look good doing it. So what if my ability to father children has been severely damaged? The final test of a reporter's stuff and its rightliness came with this contraption. I think they called it the Vomitron. It's more evil than any amusement ride, so you know it's bad.
I wanted to be a dentist.
A would-be space traveler gets strapped in, then must experience what happens when a spacecraft spins out of control during liftoff.
My capsule's out of control! Help me! Oh!
In real life, I'd be trying to control my vehicle, not just trying to control my lunch.
I don't have the right stuff! I don't have the right stuff! Ow!
As my brain was being scrambled, I had one thought. Astronauts are f***ing crazy!
Stop! Stop!
I'm told for an amateur I did very well, mostly because I didn't vomit. Personally, I have no recollection of the event, or the following 2 days. My experience on this torture machine officially ended my quest to be an astronaut. English brains are obviously too big to be rattled like that, so we'll leave it to the Americans.
I feel all mixed up like a nice little cocktail.
Shaken, not stirred?
Both. Stirred, very stirred, and very shaken.
The astronaut training and my total failure did provide a valuable insight into the whole space culture experience. Space travel is an incredible undertaking involving thousands of highly skilled and passionate people. Whether they're helping to strap humans onto giant fuel tanks so they can be blasted into the air, helping an aging mechanical marvel prepare for another trip into the unknown, or helping to keep their own dreams alive, one small lift-off at a time, these people are the real space program. They push scientific boundaries and fuel America's imagination, even if much of the country is too distracted to notice. I'm sorry, Dad. You were wrong.
I salute you, rocket scientists, and all of your achievements. NASA and its boffins not only give hope to the world that it'll be possible to live on another planet when we've destroyed this one, but it also gives hope to science nerds everywhere. Yes, under certain circumstances, you can look cool. Until next time, reporting from NASA in Central Florida, with one small step for me and one giant leap for television, this is Lawrence Beldon Smythe.